to talk a little bit about innate versus adaptive immunity. Can you tell us what both of those immune responses are and how they work or not work together?
Sure. So innate versus adaptive immunity, they're all a part of our immune system. So let's just kind of lay that out first. Your innate immunity is your immune system or your immune defenses that are just on a day-to-day, right? For instance, our first line of defense we are taught as children, right, would be our skin, right? That's something that protects us, our internal organs and functions and systems from foreign pathogens, outside, again, potential harmful pathogens. So your innate immunity would be the day-to-day, monitoring. I always illustrate it as, for instance, if you live in a neighborhood or a community where the members of your community kind of collaborate together to form like a neighborhood watch, right? So everyone does their part to kind of oversee things, spot things that are potentially happening out of the norm in your neighborhood, and that's kind of the innate immunity, the overarching umbrella of your immune system. When you get specific, for instance, a virus or bacteria that your body wants to fight off, that's what you call your adaptive immunity. It adapts to whatever and specifies whatever it's going to be fighting against. So going back to the example of your neighborhood watch, right? The people of the community would be your innate immunity. And if there's something spotted out of the norm, your adaptive immunity would be someone from a neighborhood maybe calling local law enforcement saying, hey, there's something going on in my neighborhood. Can you guys get here? And then they will be able to identify, and your law enforcement or your police officers would be your adaptive immunity based off of what the issue is. So that's kind of how I can illustrate adaptive versus innate. Innate is the overarching, and adaptive is the specifics of your immune responses.
Awesome. I love that analogy of your neighborhood watch. I think that's a great analogy to have and visual. So what are some things that we can do to strengthen both our innate and our adaptive immune responses?
Okay. Well, this was kind of the boring response. It's really about diet and exercise. I mean, there is also stress reduction and things like that too. So you can strengthen your immune system in many ways. It'll all be case to case. If there was, someone in front of me, I could tell you exactly what we do to strengthen your immune system. But it's really just the answers of diet, exercise, mental health would be the major factors in that. Now, that's just one area. But if we're talking about diet, we want to get specific. We want to be looking at vitamins like vitamin A. You want to be looking at vitamin C. So fat soluble and water soluble vitamins are both important when it comes to that. Exercise, because of things like thermogenesis, that's what strengthens our immune system. So over time, and I'm talking about consistent exercise, not just maybe once a week. I'm talking about consistent exercise, what's going to strengthen our immune system in that regard. And the mental health thing would be stress reduction, and therapies would be great for our defenses.
That's right. And sleep, right? Sleep is sort of like the one that nobody likes to talk about, but it's so true, right? And I feel like it's sort of like a chicken and an egg thing where if we get the food, if we're not taking care to make sure that the food is on point, and like you mentioned, a couple supplements and things, then it really impacts our sleep too, which then impacts all of our body's functions, right?
Oh yeah. Recovery is very, very important in every aspect of our body's function. Yeah.
And how do you feel about vitamin D?
Vitamin D is great. We live in sunny Florida over here, so I love getting sun. It very much complements the immune system. So vitamin D is, our bodies have this system on our skin, right? It synthesizes vitamin D and calcium. Calcium, they work together, which is great for our immune system. But adding exercise to that elevates our immune system even more. So if you can get out and get in the sun, that's great. But if you're doing something like power walking, biking, running, these are all great ways to start to strengthen your immune system.
Absolutely. And I live in Northern Virginia. So we are sort of very much season dependent right now. We're obviously in the middle of summer or I guess the beginning of summer, right? So we're getting a lot of warm, hot days. Like today, it's supposed to feel like 110 degrees outside. So it's really hard to go out in the middle of the day and kind of get that summer sun in for your vitamin D. But
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
but I know I know Florida gets some heat too. So it's probably similar to what we're experiencing right now in Virginia. So what do we want to avoid in order to, strengthen or boost our innate and our adaptive immune responses? What are the things that we want to avoid?
So I mentioned exercise as something that helps us in our immune responses, right? I would say what to avoid would be the same answer: exercise. So people have this theory where, if I'm starting to feel sick, I feel a cold coming on. I'm getting a head cold, or I got a scratchy throat, got to go to the gym. All right, so I would say slow down on that because what happens is exercise can actually suppress your immune system even hours after bouts of exercise. So you got to be really, really careful. And there's some research that needs to go into this. We have the research that shows that it happens, but we want to know exactly why it's happening to formulate a true response. But it happens when we exercise. So someone would say, I'm having chest pain, and I think I just need to run it out, sweat it out, man. That's how it works. But that's not exactly how our bodies respond in our immune system. Now, our bodies and our immune systems respond better when we're under heat, right? That's what happens when we get fevers, right? We heat up because the body knows that we can operate and fight better when we're warm. But when it comes to exercise, that's a whole different beast. The exercise promotes things like our adrenals, cortisol, and these are immune suppressing actually chemicals. So that's not going to be good if you're actually trying to fight something off, right? So the rule of thumb is this: anything above the head, and this is just general, right? This is just a good reference. Anything above the head, so we're talking about sore throat, maybe some nasal issues, you're good to go as far as exercise. Anything below the neck is something that you want to relax on. So if you're having problems breathing, it wouldn't be a good thing to do any cardio if you're having problems with your respiratory system. So that's just the rule of thumb, but exercise can actually negatively affect your immune responses too. So that's something to consider and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I tell people a lot of times when they're undergoing a lot of stress,
Yeah.
especially if there's like a week at work where they're under intense stress, to listen to their body and do the type of movement that their body needs. So if high stress, we probably don't need pounding, high cardio, right? We probably need something more relaxing to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, right? And kind of get us into that rest and relax mode so that then we're supporting our immune system instead of, to your point, taxing it, right? And further taxing all of our body's responses. We want to support them instead.
That's spot on. That's exactly what exercise is. It's impact, and you want to be careful about that for sure. Therapy, stretching, stretching, massage therapy, all these are great for first our mental health and the immune system.
And walking too, just going out and walking in nature, right? Like especially in the morning hours in Florida. And where are you in Florida? Which part? Middle, south?
Tampa,
North?
Florida.
Tampa. Okay. So yeah, you guys get some heat in the middle of the day right now, right? Through the fall. So it's probably morning hours for a walk there too.
Yes, it is 90 degrees today.
Yeah. And humidity too, right?
Yeah, real humid. When it gets, I would say around 6 p.m. is when it gets really bad. Right, the sun is going down, and we might get a little rain today too, so that adds to it. Yeah, it's good right now to step outside, but definitely around the 6 o'clock, 5 p.m. That's where things are going to get a little rough. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Now I know you had mentioned temperature, spiking of fever, and I know that you are an expert in thermogenesis. So I wanted to bring this up and ask you to explain what it is and how thermogenesis is, involved in our immune system response.
Yeah. So thermogenesis is the internal rising of temperature within our bodies. So internally, um, thermogenesis responds well to our immune function, even things like fat metabolism and carbohydrate metabolism. So what it is just the internal temperature that happens within the body's doing what it does within these systems. So exercise is a great place to talk about thermogenesis because when we exercise, we have heightened levels of thermogenesis using things like ATP and the mitochondria to break down carbohydrates and fats and turn them into energy to further enhance our movements. So the thermogenesis just helps with these systems, like we were talking about the immune system, where the body heat rises, we have a fever because of thermogenesis and responding, or exercise when we're enhancing the utilization of carbohydrate stores and fat stores from the mitochondria using ATP and turning these things into energy. So that's what I say thermogenesis is in a nutshell: the rising of our body temperature internally from these systems operating and acting in the ways that they do.
Mm-hmm. And is there a correlation between higher body temperature and metabolic function?
Yeah, that we call that thermal metabolism. Yeah, there is. But there needs to be research being done on what exactly that is. So, for instance, if you ever done hot yoga before, right? And we say, we got a good sweat in, so we definitely burned more calories than we did. Not necessarily. You guys were hotter, but it doesn't mean that you burned more fat stores than someone that was exercising up north and running in the snow. It just depends. It's case by case. So I don't want to say there's a direct correlation, but there's observational theory that could go along with that.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's so interesting because really in the last decade, what I've read so much about is how our average human body temperature is decreasing. It used to be 98.6, 98.7. And, when you go into the doctor's office now, a 96-degree temperature is considered normal, or in the 96s. And they would have looked at you like 10, 15 years ago and said, hey, what's going on with you? Your temperature is cooler, right? So I just was curious, whether thermogenesis has something, it sounds like it would have something to do with our internal body temperature and maybe change in lifestyle or something that's changing the temperatures of our bodies on average, right?
You know what, Heather? We should definitely bring that to our local scientists to find out why that is.
Right?
Because we have to work and collaborate to get these answers to everyone. Because I don't know why that is, but that seems like it would be right. This is just my theory. If thermogenesis as somehow affected by the lowering of our body temperature, that would mean that our systems aren't acting as optimal as they were back then, right? But does that necessarily mean that people back then, our ancestors, were healthier than we are now? Because they don't have the technology we have, they don't have the access to information the way that we do now. So that would also beg that argument too. Does that mean that they're more healthy because their thermogenesis is possibly more active than ours are now? And what's the correlation? Why is that happening? Yeah.
I'd also read that it could have to do with decrease in internal inflammation that we have now versus what people had before, which I think is really interesting. But to your point, I would love to see more research done on this and figure out, because I can't imagine that it's hard for me to think about less people having less internal inflammation giving the standard American diet that everyone's consuming, right? I would imagine there's more instead of less, but who knows? It's just something I find really fascinating and would love to be able to read more research on, right?
Well, yeah, let's book it. Let's book it.
Let's book it.
here in Tampa, we have the University of South Florida, which has a great health program. So we can definitely talk with them, and we can petition these type of studies to be done. I mean, we are, we're attributing, whether we're donating or paying towards, these universities. I'm alumni, so that'd be something that would be considered on my end. Which university do you have by you?
Oh, there are a lot around me. We have Georgetown, we've got all the DC universities, and then going further west, you've got University of Virginia, the medical system there. We've got Virginia Tech going even southwest, more southwest into Virginia. There's a lot of schools here. Mary Washington, William & Mary, quite a few. Okay. But probably Georgetown is one of the closest. GW. But yeah, we should connect offline and talk about that, because I would love to be involved in that in some way. If there's anything I can do to help. So speaking of thermogenesis, how does it impact the body temperature? How does it impact our gut biome?
Oh man. So how does it impact our gut biome? I think this is more so theory, but I feel like it would be the other way around. Our microbiome and the health of that would actually affect our thermogenesis. Because again, the thermogenesis is the result of our systems acting and creating this temperature, this rise in temperature, right? So I would assume first it would go microbiome, system activation and activity, and then thermogenesis. That's what I would think. That's what's going on in my head right now. And so I would think that the base would be to first get your microbiome and gut biota in place, in a good place, and then from there you can go ahead and elevate and try to see exactly how it affects the thermogenesis. That's how I would do that study if I was a scientist, but I'm not.
I think we missed our calling to be scientists, Donald. We both seem to gravitate towards sort of like the nitty gritty parts of the science behind nutrition, right? I love it. It's just so interesting.
That's how we present facts, right?
Yes, 100%, 100%. And the microbiome, I call it the wild, wild west of nutrition and medicine, really, right? Like it's kind of the Wild West. We don't know yet how our microbiome really affects all of our organs, disease. We know that there's leaky gut, of course, which is quite prevalent these days and in the news a lot, but it's just such an interesting topic. And I think all of us who are in this field just gravitate towards that knowledge and wanting to learn more, right? And educate ourselves so that we can help more people with their diet and the diets that are right for them, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we got, and that's how we do it to our best. That's how we do it. We start with the factual information, the studies, the theories, then the studies, and then we can present what it is. But I was thinking about the delay though. There's a lot of times when there's a delay from going from a scientific standpoint, studies being done and then results being produced, and then them being put into practice. I think it's about 7 to 10 years or something like that from things actually being found out in studies based off of results and being put into practice. So we gotta submit all these things that we're questioning, about our science and nutrition, and that way we can have things being put into practice much faster.
Absolutely. I love it. Love all of it. We should definitely sync up offline, my friend, and talk about how we can work together on that and get some of these studies done. How can people find you? Where and how?
Okay, so I have a website, so you can visit DonaldQuire.org, and from there, that's like the landing page to sign up for your free nutrition assessment. I get free nutrition assessments. You guys don't have to sign up or anything like that. Just to give you a base of where you are. So someone will say they want to know where they are on the spectrum as far as health. That'll give a base for where they are, and they can either join the program or take the numbers and go, and then try something. Social media, Donald Quire, just my name, first and last. Donald Quire Nutrition is my private practice. And yeah, that's where you can find me. On Facebook also. Go ahead and send me a friend request. I add you as a friend. Anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donald. Super informative.